Look around you. Or, well, just think about your day for a second. In our modern reality, the absolute most powerful forces shaping how we behave are completely invisible. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we aren't looking at obvious systems of control. We're diving deep into the hidden architecture of the mind, the quiet psychological structures that dictate our desires, our fears, and the reality we actually think we're choosing. So let's start with a rather unsettling question. How many of your beliefs genuinely belong to you? I mean, instinctively, we all want to say, well, all of them, obviously. But when we stop to truly examine our core convictions, our tastes, even our political stances, the boundaries of our own minds begin to look incredibly fragile.
Part 1. The illusion of control. Redefining manipulation.
When you hear the word manipulation, what comes to mind? You probably picture obvious lies, aggressive threats, or someone trying to bend your reality by force. But true influence today, it doesn't use a megaphone. The most dangerous form of manipulation relies on subtle suggestion, endless repetition, and quiet emotional conditioning. It's so dangerous precisely because it feels perfectly natural. In fact, it often feels exactly like your own original thought.
Part 2. The overwhelmed mind. Mental vulnerabilities.
Imagine you're just walking through a crowded modern city, or staring blankly into the endless scroll of a social feed late at night. You're getting hit with thousands of headlines, opinions, and highly engineered images. To survive this massive sensory overload, our brains have to rely on cognitive heuristics, basically mental shortcuts. But the exact moment we rely on these automatic shortcuts, our conscious defenses drop. We start operating on pure emotional impressions, leaving the back door of our mind wide open. You know, we constantly comfort ourselves by thinking that if we're just smart enough or educated enough, we're immune to being tricked. But that's a myth. Highly successful, brilliant people are manipulated every single day. Why? Because manipulation completely bypasses raw intellect. It targets something much more fragile, our momentary awareness. When we're exhausted or just running on autopilot, our intelligence simply cannot protect us.
Part 3. Engineered desires. Social engineering.
Let's look at how this actually plays out, completely beneath our conscious radar. First, you open an app and observe an extraordinary, carefully curated life. Next, totally without your permission, your brain builds an emotional association. It decides, okay, this is what success looks like. And finally, you internalize this quiet, heavy sense of inadequacy. You're comparing your unedited real life to a completely manufactured baseline. This emotional conditioning actually reshapes your desires. And the most unsettling part? No one ever explicitly told you to feel that way. Because here's the secret. The most effective influence changes how you feel way before it changes how you think. This is the core mechanism of invisible influence. Nobody tells you to feel inadequate or to crave a certain lifestyle. It works because you experience it as your own personal, painful emotion. You feel the insecurity deep in your chest. And because it starts as a feeling rather than a logical argument, you just accept it as a fundamental truth about yourself. By changing how you feel, the environment dictates how you eventually think.
Part 4. Influence Machine Digital Architecture.
There's this fascinating psychological quirk known as the mere exposure effect. It basically means that simply encountering something over and over again makes it feel more comfortable. And critically, it makes it feel more true. Accuracy doesn't even matter. Repetition reduces uncertainty, and the human mind craves certainty above literally anything else. Modern algorithms weaponize this flawlessly. By patiently, quietly repeating a narrative in your feed, your skepticism just dissolves. Comfort becomes indistinguishable from correctness. The internet has basically evolved into the ultimate influence machine. Every single click, every tiny fraction of a second you pause on an image, it creates data. The system meticulously maps your unique emotional blueprint. It learns exactly what sparks your outrage. It knows what activates your deepest fears. Over time, it constructs this hyper-personalized psychological cage. You might feel informed and connected, but really, you're living inside an emotional world perfectly engineered to keep you engaged.
Part 5. Ultimate Manipulator, the Enemy Within.
Now, as dark as all that digital architecture sounds, it turns out the strongest manipulation doesn't actually come from a screen. It comes from our own minds. We actively participate in our own deception. We constantly rewrite our memories. We aggressively rationalize our mistakes, and we will bend logic into knots just to avoid a deeply uncomfortable truth. Why do we do this? To preserve our self-esteem, to protect our fragile identities. It keeps us emotionally stable, sure, but it creates massive, gaping blind spots in our perception of reality.
And this is exactly where the truly sophisticated manipulators do their best work. They don't need to invent new fears for you to worry about. That's too much effort. They just quietly cooperate with the deep, unspoken forces that are already present inside you. They amplify the insecurities you're already hiding. They activate fears you've carried since childhood. The influence is perfectly invisible because it sounds exactly like your own internal monologue.
Part 6. Paradox of Awareness. Breaking Free.
So, knowing all of this, the algorithms, the psychological traps, our own massive blind spots, can we ever truly break free? Well, the stark truth is that complete independence probably doesn't even exist. We are profoundly social creatures, right? The goal isn't absolute immunity. Our only real defense is cultivating an intense, ongoing awareness. It's the daily practice of constantly questioning our own certainty. It's learning to catch that sudden flush of outrage or that deep, sudden pang of inadequacy and just pausing before it dictates your reality.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. As you go about the rest of your day, as you stare into your screens, really ask yourself, where do your own ideas actually end, and where does invisible influence begin? Somewhere in that hazy, uncertain space lies a psychological boundary we all assume we can see clearly, but very few of us truly ever find. Exploring that mystery is the first step toward genuine awareness. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.